time has finally come for us to be able to talk about the finale of Secret Invasion Episode 6, which was titled Home. I am super excited to talk about this episode, and I'm super excited to be here with episode 23 of our podcast. That's right, folks. Welcome to All Things Watched, the official podcast, a complimentary podcast to the YouTube channel of the same name, All Things Watched. Of course, here we talk all things movies, television, streaming, and everything in between. And over on the YouTube channel, we review things and we watch things, literally sit down and watch the entire episodes or movies and all that good stuff over on the channel. And then we come over here for our longer format of open spoiler discussions, which is exactly what this is. So if you have not seen the finale of Secret Invasion, I absolutely am going to ruin it for you, because not only are we going to talk about deep details, but we're actually going to break this episode down scene for scene. So if you haven't seen it, leave this podcast, go watch it, and then come back and listen to the podcast. And we'll talk about some of our theories and predictions that did come true, a few things that might not have come true, and we will talk about where we think this leaves the MCU. And also, how interesting is it that the Secret Invasion did not have a post-credit scene? Wow, is this the first time that Secret Invasion did not have a post-credit scene? And if that's the case, how come? What happened to our post-credit scene that we could not wait to see? I find that very, very interesting. All that and so much more in this episode. So I'm super excited. So once again, final warning, this is an open spoiler discussion of Secret Invasion Episode 6 titled Home. And so that's pretty well it. Let's just go right ahead and jump in to this awesome episode. Hang on, I got to make sure I got the volume turned down. If not, I'm going to get dinged. Oh, and also, I would like to apologize as well for my voice. I have a touch of a head cold, so I'm probably going to sound a little silly for, the next few days. Hopefully not too long, but maybe potentially up to a week. I sound a lot worse than what I feel, so don't worry. It's nothing serious. It's just a little head cold. I think it's from how hot it is. I think the humidity has just got me all full up. But it's not allergies. It is an actual cold. It's not just allergies. It really is a cold. So, anyways. The episode opens and with what I thought was an absolutely incredible, absolute beautiful scene between Fury and Priscilla. Yes, that's right, folks. Fury calls Priscilla, reaches out to her, and basically, reaffirms to her that he, what, he's still there for her. And with how this series ends, I thought it ended in just the most spectacular, most beautiful way, where you have this Skrull and this human who's madly in love. But we'll get to that later on. This episode has a ton of action, and I absolutely loved it right from the get-go. So we get that beautiful moment with Fury talking to Priscilla, and like I said, it was just really a really nice moment. Not as nice as the moment that you'll get at the end of the episode, but still a really nice moment all the same. So then we get to the Rebellion Skrull base, and we see this vehicle, which appears to be empty, rolling up to the gate. And then, of course, the Rebellion guards, sort of, who are Skrulls, ends up walking up to the vehicle as it's just slowly rolling in. And, of course, then they end up getting shot, and then it ends up showing Nick Fury, and then it cuts right to the intro. So you have this beautiful scene at the beginning with Fury talking to Priscilla, and then the very next scene just goes right ahead and jumps right in to the chaos, and I just thought it was so cool. Sorry folks, I got the opening credits going here. We got to skip past this. Let's see. Alright, so it's just coming up now. Secret Invasion. I always like to sort of play the episode on mute while I'm doing these little scene by scene breakdowns, and then I just sort of skips ahead to different sections. So anyways, we get the scene where Fury then we get to the next scene where now we have Rhodey, or Don Cheadle, War Machine, who we know is actually a Skrull, and he is basically here now trying to talk the president into having this, into launching an attack on Russia, because remember, Rhodey is a Skrull, and he's working with Gravik, and he wants there to be chaos in the world. He wants there to be this World War III and all this craziness, and so he's really, really pushing for the president to act on the Skrulls, to act on the location, and really just blow him away. And I also thought that this was a really cool scene as well. The fact that there actually is a president, the fact that we see the president in the hospital, he's trying to recover, trying to recuperate, while also trying to wrap his head around the fact that that they're scrolls and all this stuff. He probably might not even fully believe in it, at least not right away. But I don't know. I just really like that scene. I really like that they had this scene where they showed the president, beaten and battered and having to recover. I honestly thought the president might actually die, and I think that would have been pretty interesting and pretty compelling part of the story as well if we had have seen the president actually be killed and then taken over by a Skrull, or we end up learning later on in the future that he is a Skrull the whole time. Now, wouldn't that be crazy if it turns out that all of this in the future just turns out that he was a Skrull the whole time? That would be pretty interesting. Maybe that's why there's no post-credit scene. Ooh, imagine if Marvel releases like an episode 7 just out of the blue. That'd be crazy. Okay, hang on, folks. I have to have a drink to help my voice. Okay, sorry. So, anyways, so that scene sort of goes on for a few minutes, but we'll skip ahead now. Let me just see. Yeah, okay. So here we go. So now we get to the scene now where we see Fury, and he's going into this, this hideout, this rebellion hideout, because he, if you can remember how the previous episode ended, it ended with Fury getting the vial, what was called the Harvest, I believe they called it. They called it the Harvest. And he's going in here right now. And, when he goes into the Rebel Skrulls, he notices that all the Skrulls are dead. So clearly Gravik is pretty well completely gone off the rails. And he checks his device, and the radiation is at a pretty high level here, which for a human is obviously toxic and very harmful. So Fury is, really struggling to get in here because he's going through this radiation poisoning. He's probably, he's probably starting to have blood poisoning because of the radiation. The radiation is probably causing, blood poisoning and all this stuff. And I was really interested in this because I was really curious to see how is Fury going to get out of this. And not only that, but I also thought it was really clever writing because it shows the intelligence of the Skrulls. It shows that Gravik really did not even need to fight Fury. He really just needed to crank up the radiation. Either that, or maybe that radiation is just the natural amount of radiation that the Skrulls need. But I don't really find that necessarily to be true because the Skrulls are all over the place. Rhodey is obviously not in a place that has a ton of radiation in the hospital. So I'm thinking that Gravik, picked that location for the Skrulls to hide out in, knowing that a human just simply would not be able to survive there. So I thought that little details like that I found to be very interesting. I found just small little particular little things like that to me really shows just how good the writing is. Whether you like the series or not, you can't deny that there's some really good dialogue and some really good scenes written here. And that's just one of the small details that I really appreciated, was the fact that the radiation is so high here that it would not be even possible for a human to, survive. They could have had it just so that Fury walks in and then they fight, but they didn't. They actually had it where the radiation is all over the place. Now, of course, we know that this is not really Fury, but I will say that the show really took me for a loop. I never thought about the fact that, I just never thought about, at this point in time, I just never really thought about the fact that maybe this was not Fury, at least not in the sense of, I don't know, I just never really thought about it. I really, for a little while, I really thought that maybe this was Fury, and I was thinking to myself, how is he going to get out of this? But at the same time, I also never truly believed that it was Fury, for the simple fact that if you listen to our podcast right back to 2 or 3 episodes ago, I was saying, actually right from episode 1, I've said that I was not 100% convinced that the Fury that we are following is really Fury. So I am happy to say that after this episode, sort of both of my theories have been right, because one theory that I said, I think 1 episode ago or 2 episodes ago, was that my theory was that maybe Gaia was the one that was actually impersonating Fury as a way to sort of, fight against Gravik, because especially once Talos dies. And in this episode, it's true, this Fury that's here with Gravik now at this machine, which creates the Super Skrulls, this is actually Gaia. But I did really appreciate their back and forth here too. Even though, like I said, even though this is really Gaia, they still wrote it in a way which it really sounds like Nick Fury. Nick Fury would really talk the way that Gaia is talking here. And they did a really good job at sort of fooling the audience, especially when Gravik turns on the machine. But they really do have a really close to close, heart to heart, but not in the sense of, not in the sense that they love each other, excuse me, or that, not in the sense that they, agree with what the other is doing, but more so in the sense it was almost more like a Romeo and Juliet tragedy. It was more like, they both, once upon a time, they both had huge amounts of respect for each other, but one side of the coin obviously never got as much as what he was promised. And then, of course, the other side of the coin, to some degree, broke all those promises, but also Fury never really, after the blip, Fury never really recovered either. Fury is a broken man after all of this as well. So, really, what you have here with Gravik is you have two very broken men, fighting for what they both believe to be right. Fury believes in saving the world, and Gravik believes that, this world has, that this world, has basically chewed him up and left him out, the hang, basically. So, you can see the ideology between both Fury and Gravik, and I really appreciated that conversation. I just thought it was really realistic for both of them to have, to have this dialogue, and I just really liked it. I don't know, maybe I'm just babbling on too long now, maybe I'm just too excited, but I love that moment between Fury and Gravik. I thought they did a phenomenal job. So, anyways, Fury ends up handing over the ends up handing what they call the harvest over to Gravik. Then, while all of this is happening with Fury and Gravik, well, simultaneously over with the president, where Rhodey is, sort of hanging out with the president while he's healing, while also trying to convince the president to actually, trying to convince the president to actually bomb Russia. Rhodey ends up getting a phone call, and when he gets the phone call, it's from Sonya Falsworth, who ends up telling Rhodey that he has to get out of there right now, and he has to get out of there with the president, because Sonya tells him that Fury is on his way, and that it's not going to be good. So this obviously puts Rhodey into Skrull Rhodey, because it's not really Rhodey, so this ends up putting Skrull Rhodey into a frenzy, because now he's really nervous, and he doesn't really know what he has to do. He doesn't really know what he's going to do, because he knows that he does not want to face Fury again, because Fury has already gotten so close to him before, that he probably really does believe that Fury really will kill him this time around, if he actually ends up, if he actually ends up, getting there and getting his hands on him and whatnot. So I just thought that was really cool that, while Fury got all this stuff going on with Gravik, then meanwhile at the hospital, Rhodey and the president is concerned about Fury. So clearly there can only be one Fury. Now, as soon as I seen this or heard about this, I really started to wonder then, I actually really started to wonder then if Falsworth, what's her name? If Sonya Falsworth was actually telling the truth. A part of me thought that maybe this version of Fury that's with Gravik is not actually Fury, but I still wasn't 100% sure, because I didn't really know how they were going to go about it or what they're going to do. All I knew was that Falsworth knows that Rhodey is a Skrull now, and I know that she obviously will do whatever she can to protect the president. So I figured that she was going to sort of have her own plan. Like I said, I still wasn't 100% convinced that Rhodey actually, or that Fury was here in the hospital, but a part of me did wonder, given the fact that, I just couldn't see Falsworth wanting to go through all that herself. But then again, who knows? Maybe they would. But anyways, then we get a really cool, like a military scene where, this is basically the military getting their orders now that they need to prepare to start launching the missile to shoot the rebellion base of the Skrulls, which of course is over in Russia, which would potentially cause a World War III. You can't just shoot a nuke at, another country, no matter who they are or what they are. you can't just open fire. There's going to be some real chaos. So then we go back to the scene then with Fury and Gravik, and Fury actually, like I already said, gives Gravik the harvest. So Gravik puts the harvest into the machine to validate it, make sure it's actually real. And of course, he puts it in, and it turns out it's real, which means that the DNA that is now in Gravik's machine has the DNA of basically all the heroes of the MCU, all the Avengers, most likely Thanos, and all the magicians from Thanos, like that really cool magic dude that mainly fought Doctor Strange in Infinity War, all that good stuff, all that cool stuff. So what happens is Gravik ends up turning on the machine now, because Gravik is now going to take over all these powers and become like a super Skrull, which makes me think now that we're watching Dragon Ball Z or something, because now we're like super Saiyan. But you get what I'm saying. It makes him become even stronger, and I just thought that was so cool. But he turns the machine on while Fury is actually inside the machine with him, and then we go back once again to Rhodey at the hospital, and Rhodey is now held at gunpoint, from Sonya, who, once again, you really gotta give credit where credit is due. Olivia Colman portraying that character, she was absolutely phenomenal. Like, I truly hope that she becomes, like, the next leader of the Avengers. Like, I want her to become, like, the new Nick Fury. Like, she is so good. Like, honestly, she's probably one of the strongest performances in this entire series so far. Obviously, I think, if I'm going to be honest with you, I think her and also Samuel L. Jackson, they were the best to me. I think they were the two top performers. I even like Samuel's performance better than Gravik's, which, don't get me wrong, Kingsley Ben-Adir did an absolute amazing job portraying Gravik, especially in the last 2 episodes. I really like him in the last 2 episodes, but honestly, I really don't think that they stood out the same amount as what Olivia and Samuel did. And obviously a lot of that is because of the writing. It's not because of the actor. He's a great actor. And that's a lot like Emilia Clarke. Like, I loved Gaia in the last 2 episodes, so this episode and the previous episode. But, in the first 2 episodes, I didn't really care that much for her. And I kind of thought that, man, what a waste of an opportunity. What a waste of a character for someone as strong as, like, Emilia Clarke. I mean, come on, one of the greatest actors in the world right now, especially for her age, for this generation. And it's like, really, you got her in the MCU of all, like, the biggest franchise in the world, and she's hardly even in it. She's only like a backdoor character, until, like I said, the last 2 episodes. So I love what they did with her last episode, and I love what they did with her in this episode, which, once again, a couple of our predictions did come true, which we'll talk about once we get there and whatnot. But anyways, now the president is sort of betwixt. He's sort of stuck between 2 ideas. One is that Rhodey is a Skrull. The other is that Rhodey is not a Skrull. So he really doesn't know what to do. But he has a gun, so he really has no choice but to make a choice. Wait, well, that doesn't make sense. He's forced to make a choice. He has no choice but to make a choice. Say that 10 times fast. But you get what I'm saying. I just really loved how I feel like in that scene, the president is kind of like the average Joe, if that makes sense. He would be like me or you if we were in that situation. Who do you believe? Can you really wrap your head around the idea that someone who's standing literally physically in front of you is actually not even human? I mean, come on. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, imagine how hard of a pill that must be to swallow. You know what I'm saying? Like, he physically sees his colonel, someone that he probably trusts, someone who has worked with him, someone who was literally working in the Air Force, someone who was on Air Force One, in previous Iron Man movies and whatnot. Rhodey's been around, he's one of the OGs, he's been around since the first Iron Man movie. Of course, it was a different actor for that first movie, but still the same character. It was still James Colonel Rhodes. So, you can really tell. So this president has a lot of mad respect. He got lots of medals. He's a true, hero. Rhodey is, even without the suit, he's just naturally a military hero who really cares about the country and the Constitution, and he's going to protect the president at all costs. But then you have these, then you have Sonya coming in here, Falsworth, along with Nick Fury, telling the president, listen, this is not the man that you respect. This is not the man that you think he is. This is an alien disguised as your friend. I mean, talk about, having trying to wrap your head around something. I mean, come on. So then we go back to Fury, and we go back to Gravik, and now the machine has, basically turned off, which means the process, is complete. And now Gravik is actually in his scroll form, and he looks awesome, man. Like, I kind of wish he was in his scroll form a little bit more, but he was in his scroll form in this episode and also the previous episode. But I thought he was so cool. I honestly absolutely loved Gravik in his scroll form. I even liked him when he wasn't in his scroll form. But man, I really love seeing the scrolls as the scrolls, especially now that he's, this superpower. He's got everybody's DNA flowing through him. He's like a beast. He's a boss, and he is ripped. And, he looks a lot like the Incredible Hulk because the Incredible Hulk is green. But what's very interesting is that he ends up starting to fight Fury. He gives him a nice, good backhand. And he comes over and he's getting right ready to, basically what appears to kill Fury. And Fury puts his hand up and literally blocks it. And I also think it's worth mentioning as well that if you pay attention to Gravik's chin, and I don't know if this is intentional or if this is simply the design that they wanted to go for. So just let me know in the comment section or down below what your opinion is on this. But a part of me thinks that the reason why his chin looks the way it does right here, when Fury blocks his punch, you can tell Gravik's chin has a very distinctive chin. And the first thing that came to my mind was Thanos. And I wondered, does he have some of Thanos' DNA here? And this is why he has that sort of like that CGI Thanos chin that was sort of made from Josh Brolin. And so when Josh Brolin was portraying Thanos, and a part of me wonders if, because I can't really remember Gravik's true form until sort of like now, like, because we didn't really see Gravik's true form a whole lot until he was basically a Super Skrull. So a part of me wondered, especially now after absorbing the harvest, a part of me wondered if if his chin is not this distinctive chin now because he's using the DNA of Thanos. Now, I could be just totally off the walls with that theory, but I just thought it was interesting. As soon as I just seen him, the first thing that came to my mind was Thanos. I was like, wow, this is a Skrull version of Thanos. But anyways, Fury blocks the punch, and then it is revealed that obviously this Fury is a Skrull, and of course, he changes his hand, which I think was probably turned into the Incredible Hulk's hand, most likely, or some kind of, maybe even just a big Super Skrull hand, I don't know. And of course, as Fury walks from the ashes, comes out, then it is revealed that it is actually Gaia. Now, this is why I was saying that this is one of these theories that I made that was half confirmed and half right. And what I mean by half right was that I was right because I did say like an episode or two, or maybe even 3 episodes ago, that I believed that it was there. That it was not that I believed it as 100%, but a part of me wondered if this version of Fury that we were following was actually Gaia, because we never really truly seen Gaia and Fury on screen at the same time whenever they were at conflict with Gravik. So a part of me wondered, was Gaia actually being disguised as Fury? So I was half right in the sense, well, in this scene, yes, Gaia did, become, Fury. But I was half right in that sense. Yes, this was Gaia portraying Fury, but I was also half wrong because we were following the true Fury throughout the whole series. It's only now in this one episode, at least that we know of, that Gaia was actually the one portraying Fury. So I did theorize many episodes ago that potentially, or at least the last episode for sure, I did say in that podcast that I believe that there was a small chance, not 100%, but a small chance that maybe Gaia was actually perpetrating Fury. And then it turns out in this episode it is Gaia, but I don't think that it was Gaia the whole time. It was only for the sake of this one plan of stopping Gravik, which is why she was so willing to hand the harvest over to Gravik, because she knew that he would turn on the machine and not care about the consequences of what would happen to Fury, and probably leave him in the machine, which fortunately he did. And of course, now she becomes a Super Skrull as well. So that theory was half right. I did theorize that Gaia would be betraying Fury, but I did think more so in terms of the entire series. I thought maybe it was Gaia for the whole time, or at least half of the time, whereas in reality it was only Gaia for this one single episode. So Absolutely love that. The only complaint I think that I would have with this scene, which by the way, or with this fight, I should say, was that I kind of wish that they finally would have let Emilia Clarke just be a Skrull. Like if she's going to be a Super Skrull, like man, let her be a Super Skrull. But instead, she was basically just Emilia. For the whole time. But then again, at the same time, I could see why. It is a great way to sort of differentiate between the villain and the hero. Let Amelia, she has a really kind face. She looks like a human here. She's in her human form, but she also has all of her abilities, which, by the way, she has to be. There's no way that she's not the strongest character in the MCU now if she has all these different DNAs mixed match inside of her. She literally has the power of everybody that we can tell. She has the power of Carol Danvers. You get a lot of callbacks to Infinity War. You get a lot of callbacks to Thor, Love and Thunder. You get a lot of callbacks to a lot of different things. A part of me even wondered if one of her abilities wasn't from an X-Man, which I don't think. I think it was actually a callback to probably the Frost Giants when she makes that ice sword. But you could make an argument and say that it could have been from an X-Man, like Iceman. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, it could have been Iceman. I'd like to, I know it wasn't because, I don't know why Marvel has not jumped on every opportunity to slowly start teasing the mutants. Like, I still don't understand why they just, or even someone like the Fantastic Four, like, I still don't understand why Gravik had to have four completely different DNAs in the comic book. Like, who cares? Let them have the Fantastic Four powers. Just don't name them or just don't show their picture. I mean, we all know Fantastic Four is coming, which means very likely in terms of the timeline in the MCU, especially now with the multiverse, the timeline's all over the place. There's no doubts in my mind that even though we haven't actually been introduced to the Fantastic Four yet, they do already exist. I don't look at the Fantastic Four right now as a group that's coming to the MCU. Along a lot like the X-Men, I don't think that this is a group that's coming to the MCU. I think both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four are already in the MCU. It's just because we haven't seen their movies, we haven't seen them yet. We haven't been introduced to them. But I don't think for a second that they're not already in the MCU. I'm sure when we meet Reed Richards and Sue Storm and Johnny, who was it, Johnny Blaze, I believe, and Ben, who's the Thing, like these are going to be, for the most part, adults. We're not going to see them, I don't think, as children. We're going to see them as adults, which means they're already going to have their powers. It's already been confirmed that it's not an origin story, which means the Fantastic Four are already in the MCU. They already have their powers. Now, where are they? Now, that's a different story. Now, are they in a different universe? Possibly. Maybe they are. Or are they in our universe? Are they in our dimension? Are they in the quantum realm? Well, not in Ant-Man they weren't, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. Maybe they were. Maybe that would be a great way to tie into Kang. Maybe Kang had them as prisoners, and then when Ant-Man and the Wasp ends up going to Quantum Mania, maybe that's somehow how they were able to release the Fantastic Four. I don't know how they're going to introduce them, but I have no doubts in my mind that they're already in the MCU, and I still feel like Marvel should have allowed Gravik to have their abilities. I don't know why they held that back. I don't know why they would not hold any of them back. Why hold back the X-Men at all? And I don't mean like, I can see why they're not introducing him yet, but I don't understand why they're not teasing it more. Like, if I was Kevin Feige, I would totally, if I was allowed, of course, like legally with the rights and everything, I would have totally had Gravik be just like the counterpart, the comic book counterpart, and he would have had the Fantastic Four abilities. It would have been so cool to see the Fantastic Four abilities, but done by somebody other than the Fantastic Four. And I thought that would have been so cool, and a great nod, and a great, sort of a great way to, to nod your head, but anyways, we're going a little bit too far off topic here. Gaia is awesome. She is a beast to be reckoned with. I actually thought this fight was done really well. I thought the CGI looked really well. And then, of course, once it's revealed to be Gaia, then we go back here once again to the hospital, and now we see the real Nick Fury come in, and once again, just a straight up Fury scene. He puts his gun down because that's what Nick Fury does. Nick Fury is loyal to the president. He's not loyal to the Constitution. He is loyal as a heartbeat, to the president. And he will not hurt the president. And he, as soon as he walks in, he disarms the president's guard because he knows that they are a threat. And then he puts his gun down and allows the president to point his gun at him and whatnot, and you get what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't force the president, to lay down his gun. He willingly puts his own gun down and is like, listen, man, I'm not the problem. He is Rhodey, once again trying to make the president wrap his head around the idea that Rhodey is not human. Which, let's be honest, for someone like us, if we were standing in front of someone physically, it would be really hard for us not to believe that as well. But anyways, I absolutely love that scene. I thought it was great. I thought the writing was great. I'll tell you one thing about this episode that I loved the most was actually more than anything, even more than the cool battle, more than the CGI, even more than the writing and acting, and believe me, all that stuff is spot on in this episode. What I liked the most about this episode was the editing. I thought this episode was really well edited. The way that they did the dialogue in certain scenes, the way that they did their transitions, the way that the fight and the choreography and stuff was edited. I thought the editing was done really well in this episode. So great job to the editing team, and also great job to the director. Here is a great callback to in seeing them once Gravik and Gaia start to fight. Her arm ends up turning like that glowy orange, symbolizing Extremis. And then when she ends up running, she ends up having one of her arms be like Drax. You could tell that it was like Drax. And then we get a scene here where we get Gravik, who's about to throw a car at her. I think one of his arms is like the Abomination, and I'm not quite sure what the other arm is like. But that also, to me, was a scene straight from the Hulk, or the Incredible Hulk, or maybe like 2003 Hulk, when Hulk picks up a car and just launches it and flicks it. I really got that vibe. Like, to me, Gravik really looked a lot like the Hulk, which would make sense because he got the Hulk's DNA. But then Gaia ends up sort of what I think that her ability is there. I think her ability there was from Ghost, which gave her the ability to phase in and out. And to me, she ends up phasing when the car comes at her. She phases away. Now, I could be totally wrong, but to me, I think that she was sort of imitating Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, not Quantumania, but just Ant-Man and the Wasp. When Ghost was the main villain of that movie, when they had to save Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm, because Scott Lang had already experienced it, so Hank wanted to try to save his wife. But anyways, the main villain of that movie was Ghost, and I think that's who Amelia was replicating there. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's who. And currently, at the same time here, while fighting Gravik now has one arm like Groot, and one arm like, I'm not even 100% sure what his arm was. One arm like the rock monster, I think, from Thor, Love and Thunder, and also Thor Ragnarok. Thor's really good friend, that really funny guy with the accent. I think, I could be wrong, like I said, but, and then, of course, Gaia ends up having the ice on her hand, which to me symbolizes the Frost Giants, or maybe even symbolizes that God DNA that was in Thor, Love and Thunder, when the God Butcher killed the big Frost God or Frost Monster, whatever he was. Or she could simply be replicating the Frost Giants, because that is a common thing from the Frost Giants as well, all the way back to Phase 1, the original Thor movie. And like as we said, the Skrulls are galactic. They are alien. They are a galactic race. So, it makes a lot of sense that it would make sense that they would have access to that kind of DNA. And then Gravik changes his hand again, becoming the hand that was the magician that fought against Doctor Strange in Infinity War. If you can remember, the magician would just, lift his hand and basically do a bunch of just like telekinesis. He also fought against Iron Man and everybody, and he ended up actually capturing Doctor Strange, and had all these like weird magical needles pointing at Strange's face, because they were trying to get the Time Stone, the Infinity Stone, the Time Stone from Strange. So he ends up imitating that character, which I thought was really cool. And he actually uses that ability a few times. He imitates the Hulk. He ends up having the Hulk arm, or leg, and arm. He ends up having the Hulk leg and arm. So really, it was just really what I found with this fight was that both Gaia and Gravik, it was just a great callback to the MCU as a whole, because now they have basically inherited all the power. So, like I said, Gaia is undoubtedly the strongest character in the MCU now. Literally, I mean, because she ends up imitating Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. So I really don't know that there's a whole lot of characters in general that are as strong as Carol Danvers. But now, obviously, Gaia is. And of course, her arm changes to something again, which I wasn't really 100% sure what it was. But she ends up running, and then she ends up becoming this flaming thing. She ends up becoming like energy or whatever, like what Carol Danvers is. And then one of the coolest transitions that I really liked during this fight was when they're flying in the sky, and then Gaia ends up using the DNA from Mantis, and she actually grows out these two antennae on her forehead, and she tells Gravik to sleep. And I just thought that that was so funny because, I mean, how cool is that? Great way to throw Guardians of the Galaxy in here. Mantis, I really liked that. I thought it was good. It also showed how intelligent Gaia was. She was able to win and beat Gravik by outsmarting Gravik. Basically, she knew how to use the DNA. She knew which type of DNA to use. She really did a good job at honing her powers, and really becoming really good with her powers. So I really appreciated that. And then, of course, we kind of get more towards the end of the battle. And her eyes are glowing, like she looked sick. Gaia looked really, really cool. And of course, Gravik is healing and whatnot because obviously he has the Incredible Hulk powers, but also the Extremis, just like Gaia. But she ends up overpowering him, and she actually ends up killing him almost the same way that Iron Man 3 kills one of the people with Extremis by a blast through the chest, which I would assume like destroys like all the important organs, like the heart, all the intestines and everything. And this actually ends up killing Gravik, which shows that even though they're super powerful, even though they are super Skrulls, they can absolutely still die. So even though Gaia is extremely powerful, she can still be defeated. And so I think that will be very important in the future. I think that'll be very important if, one of these days, which I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future. I do believe that Emilia Clarke will probably stick around in the MCU for quite some time, but it does leave the option open if she ever did want to leave, or just sort of, they ever wanted to recast or wanted to do some kind of multiversal adventure. The fact that Gravik dies shows that she can die as well. So even though she's extremely powerful, potentially the most powerful being that there is now, she can still die with a big enough, quick enough, and fatal enough blow. She's not like Deadpool, although I do think it would be so cool if she was able to absorb Deadpool's powers. Can you imagine if they already had the X-Men introduced and she was able to like just grow back a limb? I mean, that would be crazy. So anyways, after that awesome, amazing, cool, really sick fight, I actually thought that fight looked really well. There were a couple moments when it looked very CGI, but honestly, it sucked me in so much that I really had a lot of fun with it. I really did think the fight was really good. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. I loved seeing Gravik and Gaia face off, and I think they just did. It was really satisfying to see her finally be able to sort of avenge her dad, Talos. It was a great callback to Talos, and of course her mom, and it was just so cool, but once again, very predictable. I mean, we predicted that would happen, like I said, an episode or two ago. For a while we've been predicting that Gaia was potentially going to, take over and lead the Skrulls. So anyways, back at the hospital, they end up, Fury and the President, Falsworth and Rhodey are still in their standoff. But Rhodey ends up trying to make a move on the President, but of course, because of Fury's quick reaction and just boss of a reaction time, he ends up shooting Rhodey right in the head, and then the President ends up seeing that Rhodey is a Skrull, and he really doesn't even know how to react, I don't think. At first, he's kind of in shock, so he asks for a phone, and he calls off the airstrike, which was really good and really important. And while he's calling off the airstrike, simultaneously, Gaia is now releasing all the humans that have been taken over by the Skrull. So we see her releasing all these people of power and of authority. She ends up releasing Colonel Rhodes. She ends up releasing who was it? Everett Ross, who was portrayed by Martin Freeman. So she ends up releasing him because he was only in the first episode, and of course now he's in this episode. And it was also another great callback, I thought, to Civil War as well. At least it reminded me of Civil War, because when she releases Rhodey, he's not able to walk, and that happened in Civil War when he fell. Because here, when they took him over and captured him, he probably doesn't have his his armor legs, or that technology that helps him walk that Tony ended up creating for him. So 2 military people has to actually walk him out and escort him out. And then Everett Ross, of course, comes through. So it was just really rewarding and really satisfactory to see Gaia end up saving them. And then, of course, like I said, very predictable. Gaia, of course, will end up becoming the leader because she ends up having this conversation with Falsworth, where Falsworth is like, listen, I want to have this partnership with you. And honestly, that is one thing I have to give kudos to. That conversation was very realistic, but also very heart-wrenching to some degree, but also true. It was like a realistic conversation, but also very kind of like, oh man, like you didn't have to say that, but at the same time, what you said is true type thing. Because when Falsworth reaches out to Gaia and tells Gaia, okay, you're going to be the new leader of the Skrulls, and we're going to work together. And the first thing Gaia says, well, I don't know if I want to work together because it didn't work for Fury and Talos. And what Falsworth says, she says, well, I'm not interested in friendship or love. Or something along that lines. And I thought that was like, wow, that is who Falsworth is. She is just a beast. That's why we love her. She is that bold, charismatic, don't care, do whatever it takes to get it done. If she has to kill what's in the room, she will. If she needs to cut off somebody's finger, she will. She is not interested in love or relationship. She is interested in one thing. Let's keep the peace between the Skrulls and the humans, and let's benefit from each other in the process. I got the resources, you got the knowledge, you got the power, you're a Super Skrull, you keep the peace, and I'll give you the resources, and we can work together to fight off bigger threats and more imminent threats. And I just thought that conversation was so, like, when Gaia says to her, well, it didn't work for my father and Fury, but then, Falsworth is like, well, I'm not interested in love and relationships or friendship. I am interested. She's totally by the book. She's totally a business. She's an opportunist. She's seen an opportunity for Gaia and her to work together, and so she reached out and she's going to take it. Which is why I think she would be so good to be the leader of like an Avengers, or even more so, become the leader of something like the Thunderbolts, or maybe even become a leader of, I don't even know, become the leader of like. I don't even know, honestly. Who could she be? Like the Midnight Suns? I don't know that the Midnight Suns would be a good thing for her to be the leader of, but I could definitely see her being the leader of the Thunderbolts. I think she would actually be an even better leader than the other lady, the one from Seinfeld. Don't get me wrong, I love her as an actress, but I don't know that her character was as compelling as Sonya, but then again, we haven't really been introducing her character either, so it's kind of hard to know. I look forward to seeing Sonya again, and I hope she's in more stuff and all that stuff. So I just love that back and forth. I thought that was really good. And then we come to the scene which really, really, really reminded me of X-Men. If you can remember, once again, another theory that I predicted either in an episode or two ago, what I said was, wouldn't it be something if the humans created a technology to be able to find and target the Skrulls, which would eventually then become the same technology that would be used to target and hunt the mutants. And I can honestly see that starting to take place right now, and literally in this scene with the president, when he addresses the world about the Skrulls, he tells them and threatens them and literally says that they have the means and resources to locate them, find them, and kill them, and that is what they are going to do. The president declares all alien life form on the planet to be a threat that will be terminated. And to me, even the whole setup, the way that, it shows the cameraman and they're fixing his tie because he's about to make a press conference, but then over on the left-hand side of the room, they got like the American flag and all that stuff. I could not help but go right back. All I could think about was X-Men 2 or X2, which was called X-Men United. And that's exactly all I could see was, especially when Nightcrawler was going through the hallway and he breaks in and he wants to have, break into the president's office, the Oval Office or whatever. And that is exactly what this reminded me of. Like, to me, this is just 100% foreshadow to the X-Men. This is the president. This is what the president will say eventually to the mutants, because although mutants are not alien, they are, like, in the sense of aliens from outer space, they are still aliens because they are alienated. So I do think that Secret Invasion, if there's anything that you can get from this series and you're wondering how does this relate to the rest of the MCU, or in the greater scheme of things, well, what I think from this one scene alone, I think this has done a really good job at laying the groundwork for the X-Men and eventually what will become the discrimination and the alienation of the X-Men, maybe to the point where they actually create the Sentinels to actually hunt the X-Men, like, places like Trask Industries. I could see Trask starting to come from this new form of government of, this type of aggression. I could see Weapon X coming from something like this, although I think that would already exist, especially if Wolverine already exists. If he's already Wolverine, then obviously Weapon X already exists and whatnot. So, but I just thought it was really interesting, and I just, for me, watching that scene with the president saying that on live television was just, like, all I could see was, it just brought me right back to X-Men 2, X-Men United, and I just thought that it was, wow, just like seen straight from, like I said, straight from the X-Men, and straight from the X-Men universe. So, anyways, I think that is going to be, the big significant thing that happens, I think, from this series, will be that. So I'm very, yeah. So I think that, that will lay the groundwork for later on. It will lay the groundwork for the mutants. And we get to what I think not only one of the most beautiful scenes of this series, but I would make an argument to say even maybe one of the most beautiful scenes in all of the MCU as a whole, especially for someone like Nicholas Fury, who we haven't really seen a whole lot of backstory, at least not to this extent, and whatnot. But this was my favorite scene, I think, probably, like I said, at least in anything recent with the MCU, is when Fury finally reaches out and actually goes and sees his wife, Priscilla. Now, there's actually two scenes that we really get. We get the scene at the very end when he's about to go back up to the Sword spaceship, or whatever they call that spaceship now. But also, before we get there, there's another really beautiful scene where he's with Priscilla in their house, and he goes there, and she says to him, once again, the writing for this episode was spot on, just superb. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson's performance, combined with Charlene Woodard's performance, I mean, the way they react to each other, the way they bounce off of each other was just spot on. Absolutely momentous to me, monumental. I thought these scenes were, because it really shows the heart of both the Skrull and the humans, especially now while simultaneously we have Gaia and Falsworth about to have this alliance, which has nothing to do with love, it's strictly business. Well, here we see Fury and this Skrull have an alliance and keep that alliance, which is based on love, but this time it's real love, and not a friendship love like him and Talos, but a true, legitimate love with Priscilla. And I think this would actually be a beautiful spot to end Fury's story. I mean, let's be honest, and I don't mean this as in, like, in the sense that I think that Samuel Jackson is gonna die tomorrow. I don't mean it like that, but I mean that, like, Samuel Jackson is not a young man anymore. He is getting up there in age, and then there is going to be a point in time when he is going to have to retire from the MCU. And I think that this ending, honestly, is a satisfying ending. Why not let Fury end with this type of, movie? Let him get the girl, even if it is a Skrull. Let them retire. Let them be happy. And just let him live out the rest of his days in the MCU as being a happy married man to a Skrull who helps keep the peace with Gaia. And you can still have him cameo every now and again, but he doesn't have to have these crazy big adventure or action sequences anymore. I mean, I know he's going to be in the Marvels, but I mean, how much longer do we really need Fury to sort of be that, intertwining connection? I mean, Fury was in the MCU literally since Iron Man, the very first Iron Man. So Fury has been in the MCU since the beginning. I mean, we're talking over 10 years. In fact, I think the MCU started 15 years ago, I think it was. So, I mean, how crazy is that? Roughly, I mean. So, it'd be, if he were to make a cameo in 2028, whatever phase MCU will be into then, that would mean Fury would be probably the longest lasting character in the MCU, with the exception of Thor, if Chris Hemsworth actually joins. But even when he joined, Thor didn't come out, I don't think, until 2010. So Fury would be the longest lasting character in the MCU, because even though the character of Rhodey was in the first Iron Man, it wasn't Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle didn't come into the scene until later on. So, you know what? That means that Samuel L. Jackson is currently the oldest running, and I don't mean old as in age, but I mean he has been around literally since the very first movie of Phase 1. He is that now that I think about it, he is the only one that has been around for that long and is still around. 15 years he's been in the MCU. That is crazy when we say it like that. But anyways, back to the scene. He goes to the house and he basically apologizes to Priscilla, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. She says, "Sorry for what?" And he says, "I'm sorry for never being here." And he gives a beautiful line. He says, "If you can ever think to forgive me, you know where to find me." And she says some beautiful lines as well. She says, "All I wonder all the time is whether or not you loved me or the face that I'm wearing." She said, "I could never really be me unless you weren't here. It was when you were here but I wasn't really sure who I was." And wow, I mean, what superb writing. So emotional, a real gut puncher, almost like getting a knife to the heart, but at the same time a very satisfying answer on both of their ends, because they're both saying their truths. They're both being honest with each other while at the same time forgiving each other. She says, "Hey, what are you sorry for?" And then he says, "Hey, if you can forgive me, you know where to find me." And which comes to what I think the most beautiful scene that the MCU has ever done, which is once again between Fury and Priscilla, which is right before he goes back up to the sword or whatever that, spaceship is, and he kisses her and she's in human form. And then she says to him, "Do you love me for who I am really, or for what I am?" And then he says, "I love you for who you are." And she becomes the Skrull. She transforms into her Skrull appearance, and she continues to kiss Fury, and he continues to kiss her, and they walk off into the light to go back up into that sword spaceship or satellite or whatever it is that Fury's been hanging out in pretty well since Captain Marvel, I believe it was, roughly when he was there, or was that after Endgame? No, because during Captain Marvel he was blipped, so he wasn't even really in the world, which means it must have been right after Endgame. So ever since Endgame he's been sort of hanging out up here in that spaceship and whatnot. But all I can say is, wow, what an absolute exceptional ending to what I think was an absolutely exceptional television series. I thought this was Marvel at some of its best. I really did like this Disney Plus show. I'd be lying to you folks if I said I didn't like Secret Invasion. I thought it was phenomenal. I was super skeptical. It was a little predictable. Like I said, we did predict that Gaia would become the new leader. We did predict that she would end up working with Sonya. We did predict that, well, at least we were half right about her portraying Nicholas Fury, which she did, but only for one episode. We predicted that Gravik would die, which he did. We even predicted that maybe, at least a small possibility, that this technology or this invasion would force the governments to find and use a technology in which they could hunt the Skrulls and kill them, which I believe and still believe, even after seeing this episode, that they will eventually use against the mutants. And I absolutely do believe that, and I do think we are heading in that direction. But all in all, I absolutely loved this episode, and all in all, I love Secret Invasion. It is one of my favorite Disney Plus shows. Not my favorite, but one is in my top 5. If I had to guess number 1, I can never choose between Loki and WandaVision, but I think just because I like the characters of Wanda and Vision a little bit more than Loki, and that has nothing to do with the actors. I think they are the 3 best casts, or 3 of some of the best casts in the MCU. I think they are just like Samuel Jackson is the greatest cast for Nick Fury. I think Don Cheadle is the best cast for Rhodey. Olivia Colman is definitely the best cast for Sonya Falsworth, and I do believe that Ben Mendelsohn was the best Talos, and Emilia Clarke is definitely the best Gaia. Well, I would say that, I think that there are a lot of casts that were just spot on, and I just can't imagine any of these characters being cast by someone else and whatnot. But anyways, I think Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany cast as Scarlet Witch, and Vision definitely the best. Just like Tom Hiddleston cast as Loki, he's really good too. But after seeing the multiverse and the different versions of Loki, as much as I love Loki, I loved other casts playing Loki too. So that was really fun to see that. But oh yes, and Vision. Vision is also someone who started with Iron Man as well. So he would also be one of the long, because he was the voice for Jarvis. So I guess Vision would be one of the longest running superheroes left as well, because he was in it since Phase 1 as well. But anyways, so I'm thinking that I think WandaVision was probably my favorite. Either that or Loki. Yeah, I think it was WandaVision. I would say WandaVision, Loki, Miss Marvel for sure. Miss Marvel, I would almost put her up on top too, but I do think I like WandaVision and Loki a little bit more, just because I'm such a science fiction fan. Well, I just love Wanda and Vision because of their love, but I love Loki because of the science fiction. But then I would say Miss Marvel, and then honestly after that, in terms of the Disney Plus shows, I think I would probably say Secret Invasion then would be my number 4, and then Moon Knight would probably be number 5 for me. I did really like Moon Knight. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the ending, but I did like the series overall. I still thought Moon Knight was a really good series, especially when they really dove into the wackiness and craziness of Moon Knight and his mind. But I had a lot of fun with that, and I really had a lot of fun with this one as well, Secret Invasion. So all in all, I absolutely love Secret Invasion. Absolutely love this series. One thing that I was very curious about, though, is the fact that there was no post-credit scene. Why is there no post-credit scene in Secret Invasion? Now, I've never done any research or any, I've never looked at it or done any research or looked into why there was no post-credit scene. But I did find it very interesting that there was no post-credit scene. And all that good stuff. So, but anyways, I am very excited now to see the Marvels. Not because necessarily of the Marvels, while I am excited to see Miss Marvel again. I'm not really a big fan of Captain Marvel, and as cool as Monica Rambeau was, I'm still not really that excited with her yet, just because I think I'm not really... I haven't related to her yet. She hasn't really been in the show enough. So I haven't really, I just haven't connected with her yet. But Miss Marvel, I absolutely did connect with Miss Marvel. I cannot wait to see Miss Marvel again. I'm actually so excited that we're going to see her already. And I'm really excited that we're going to get to see her in a movie, because I want to see her powers and her special effects be done on a real big scale, on a real big budget. I cannot wait to see how her powers look on the big screen. And I think she will be, I think she will bounce off of the other characters really well. Like, I do think she'll play off of Brie Larson really well, who plays Captain Marvel. And I do think that she'll play off of Monica Rambeau really well as well. And the character who plays her, I can never remember that actor's name. But I do. It's like I can never remember the actor's name who plays Miss Marvel either. But I do think that they are going to. I think their dynamic is going to be really fun and really cool. I just hope that it's not too wonky. Like, I hope it's a little bit serious. Like, I don't want it to just be a throwaway movie where it's like it's. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be like a Thor: The Dark World kind of movie, which is kind of what I'm feeling, the kind of the vibes that I'm getting from it. Like, or even like Thor: Love and Thunder, because that was sort of like a throwaway movie too. Like, I loved Ragnarok. Ragnarok had really good humor, but it also had a really good story. Whereas I feel what Love and Thunder had an okay story with really bad humor. And then I found with Thor: The Dark World, it was just a really bad story in general, and not enough humor. I just found like maybe it was really a little bit too dark and a little bit too gritty and all that good stuff. But so I am excited to see Nicholas Fury return in the Marvels. I'm really excited to see Olivia Colman, and where is she going to pop up again? And also Gaia, where is she going to pop up again? Like, is there going to be a season 2 of Secret Invasion? Has it been confirmed? Do we really know what happens next? Where do we go from this next? I mean, where do the Skrulls know? I mean, obviously they are going to be in Secret Wars. I have no doubts in my mind that Gaia is eventually going to start affiliating with Avengers somehow. I mean, she's literally the most powerful now. She's even more powerful than than Captain Marvel herself. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see where that goes and how that all plays out. Like I said, I'm really excited to see where all these characters are going to pop up again. Like, I hope we don't have to wait forever to see them again. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see Gaia, like, very soon. I want to see Olivia Colman very soon. I want to see. Well, Don Cheadle has that Armor Wars show coming, I think. So it's a possibility that we could definitely see Olivia Colman in that. We might even be able to see Nick Fury in there. There's no reason I don't see why Samuel Jackson would not come back, even if it was only for one episode, especially after the events of Secret War or Secret Invasion. I feel like they would almost have to address that. Like, they have to talk about that in Armor Wars, and I think that it would be cool to see Gaia sort of help Rhodey. I don't think that she will. I'd be curious to know who was going to be. Ironheart. I think Ironheart is going to be in that one as well, isn't she? I think I could be wrong, but anyways. All very exciting. Can't wait to see the future projects. Absolutely loved this finale of Secret Invasion, and absolutely loved Secret Invasion as a whole. So, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Did you like Secret Invasion? Did you like it? Tell me why or why not. I hope you did. If you're listening to this on the podcasting platforms, then click that follow button. And if you're listening to this on our YouTube channel, then also click that subscribe button. And it really helps the channel and really helps the algorithm and all that good stuff. And I am going to upload this entire podcast to the channel. Usually I cut it down a little bit, but I'm thinking I might just start uploading the entire podcast to the channel anyways. Alright, I am pretty well out. My voice is gone. My head cold is still in full effect, so so that's pretty well all I got. Love the show, love the episode. I will do a review for the series as well, like an actual review video, but I probably won't do a spoiler review because, we did a spoiler review of each independent episode. There's no need for me to talk about the series as a whole when we break down all the episodes anyway. So, love the episode, love the series. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you like this one, leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until the next video, take care.